Number 3. Bleached tofu. Tofu has always been one of the most ordinary and essential foods on the Chinese dinner table. It can be steamed, fried, served cold, or added to soup. Countless households and restaurants rely on it every day. It looks clean, soft, and naturally harmless. But in reality, tofu can also have a dark and hidden side. In 2019, on a hillside in Fangzhou District, Beijing, the media exposed a crude tin shed that turned out to be an illegal tofu factory. When reporters entered, they saw dirty wastewater flowing across the floor. The air was filled with a sour, rotten stench. Dust covered the walls and ceiling. Even more disgusting, every tofu mold was crawling with flies. Soybeans were soaking in filthy water, with no sign of clean raw materials. Buckets, basins, and vats were scattered everywhere, all coated with thick grime. Almost every corner of the place reeked of filth. These were not small batches of handmade tofu. They were mass-produced products bearing the factory label of Xinyuan Enterprise Management Company, Limited, and were being shipped to the Jinxiu Dadi wholesale market. According to media investigations, in order to keep its brand in circulation, the company secretly rented this illegal workshop in Fangzhou. Reporters later found that the tofu produced here carried no manufacturer information, no food production license, and no production date. It was completely untraceable, a classic 3-no product. Even more frightening was the scale. By the time the story broke in May 2019, more than 5,000 kilograms of unregistered, uninspected black market tofu had already entered the market. It was not only sold locally, but distributed across multiple wholesale stalls. On the surface, Xinyuan appeared to be a legitimate company, but in reality, its business license had already been revoked. As early as August 27, 2018, it was shut down by the Chongqing District Administration for Industry and Commerce for having ceased operations for over 6 months. Yet tofu bearing its brand was still circulating on the market, produced by people who were not the company itself. When investigators raided the site on May 9th, they found 71 baskets of tofu, totaling about 1,500 kilograms, already prepared and waiting to be shipped. The workshop owner initially denied everything. But when reporters showed him videos and photos of him delivering tofu to the Jinxiu Dadi wholesale market in Haidian District, he finally admitted the truth. All the tofu was destroyed, and all the production equipment was seized. 2 other similar legal factories were also discovered, and another 1,200 kilograms of tofu were destroyed on the spot. The people in charge had already fled. The landlord said that if the media had not exposed it, this toxic tofu would have continued flowing into the wholesale market and eventually onto ordinary people's dining tables. Laboratory tests made the situation even more alarming. Regulators found a banned additive in some tofu samples, benzoic acid. Benzoic acid is a preservative, but it is not permitted in soy products. That means people were not just eating dirty tofu, but also ingesting potentially harmful chemicals. Tofu is a food people eat every day without a second thought. If even something so basic and seemingly safe cannot be trusted, then what foundation does food safety really have? Number 2. Poison cooking oil in tank trucks. If you see a tanker truck on the road, you might think it carries gasoline or diesel. But in China, it could actually be carrying edible cooking oil that will soon be served on people's tables. Even more terrifying, that oil may have just been contaminated by toxic industrial chemicals. This scandal began with an in-depth investigation by the Beijing News. Reporters tracked a tanker truck with a license plate G5476W and discovered serious illegal practices. In May 2024, the truck was loaded with coal-derived industrial oil in Ningxia. Without any cleaning, it was then sent directly to load edible vegetable oil at China Grain Reserves Oils Corporation. Driving records from video bloggers showed that this same tanker repeatedly entered multiple major grain and oil companies, including facilities linked to well-known brands such as Arowana. Thick black industrial residues and light-colored edible oil took turns being carried in the same tank, creating a dangerous chemical relay. The reason was simple: they did not wash the tank. Proper cleaning requires alkaline soaking and high-temperature steam treatment, which is expensive. To save money, transport companies left several kilograms to over 10 kilograms of coal-derived oil residue inside the tank. These chemical remnants silently mixed into the edible oil. Zhu Yi, associate professor at China Agricultural University, warned that long-term consumption of such oil could lead to poisoning and damage the blood-forming system. Simulations showed that even a few milliliters of coal-derived oil residue mixed into 1 ton of edible oil could cause a strong, irritating odor and pose greater risks to children and the elderly. Once the news broke, the internet exploded. A video posted by former Hubei richest man, Lan, surely received tens of thousands of likes and shares. Although some of his claims were later found to be exaggerated, the panic had already spread. Shoppers began checking every bottle of cooking oil in supermarkets. Restaurant kitchens became the focus of customers' questions. In response, China's State Council Food Safety Office formed a joint investigation team. A nationwide inspection followed. The final results showed that 4 companies, including China Grain Reserves Oils, were involved. The popular brand Arowana, despite being in the spotlight, was found not to be directly implicated. 2 tanker trucks were confirmed to have engaged in illegal operations, though no nationwide systemic problem was found. In 2024 alone, market regulators handled more than 170,000 food safety cases, imposed 420 million yuan in fines, and referred over 900 cases to judicial authorities. Tanker truck contamination has now become a new risk point. This scandal directly led to regulatory upgrades. In February 2025, China's market regulator released a draft amendment to the food safety law, introducing a licensing system for bulk transport of liquid foods like cooking oil, with fines of up to 500,000 yuan for violations. But public anxiety remains. China already required dedicated tanker trucks in 2014. Why were people still breaking the rules a decade later? Number 1. Melamine, toxic feed, and dead fish. The 2008 melamine milk scandal shocked the nation, but few people realized that one of its roots lay in the aquaculture feed industry. The abuse of melamine in feed was not accidental. It was an unspoken industry practice that lasted for years, as early as 2004. Chemical companies packaged melamine waste as protein powder and sold it cheaply to feed producers. It was then resold at several times the price. This industrial waste could artificially inflate protein test results, making feed appear higher quality than it really was. In aquaculture, where protein levels are crucial and fish meal is expensive, melamine became a shortcut to lower costs. In 2007, Professor Mai Kongson of Ocean University of China warned that melamine was widely used in domestic aquaculture feed. At the same time, the United States traced its pet food poisoning crisis back to melamine-contaminated feed from China. But these warnings were largely ignored. In 2008, melamine levels in eggs from Dalian were found to exceed safety limits by 88%. Investigations revealed that toxic feed had already spread throughout the farming industry. Pollution made things even worse. In July 2007, Wuhan's East Lake became a graveyard for fish. Dead silver carp covered the water. 8 fishing boats worked non-stop to collect them, while a suffocating stench filled the air. More than 50 tons of fish died, caused by wastewater discharge from dozens of nearby outlets. Similar disasters happened again and again. In 2013, another major fish die-off occurred in Hubei's Fu River after a chemical company discharged excessive ammonia nitrogen. These were not isolated incidents. Experts pointed out that small factories often discharged wastewater into irrigation channels. During rainstorms, polluted water surged into fish farms, creating deadly contamination waves. From industrial waste in feed to toxic wastewater in rivers, fish were squeezed from all sides, and eventually the threat reached human dinner tables. Although protein powder was banned in 2007 and crackdowns followed after 2008, regulatory loopholes still remain. Those pale, floating dead fish are not just the losses of fish farmers. They are potential poisons waiting to appear on our plates. That concludes this episode of China's most terrifying black-hearted foods. Which case shocked you the most? Leave a comment below. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.